Now, as you just heard, Queenslanders are now officially set to go to the polls, but not until March 24. The Premier Anna Bligh joins us now from Brisbane. Good morning, Premier. Thanks for your time.
Good morning.
We heard you outline your reasons for going to the polls on March 24, but do you at least concede that it's a slight political advantage for you to be campaigning longer?
I don't think there's any advantage here for anybody other than the Queensland people. What this does is mean we have a state election exactly when it's due. It means people know in advance, so there's no surprises. But most importantly, it means that they get to see the Commission of Inquiry's full report about both local and state government responses to our disasters before they go to the polls. I note some whinging from the LNP about this, but I'd ask people to consider what they would be saying if I had called an election before that report was finalised and made public. People are entitled to know the truth, they are entitled to see it in full, and that's what this provides for.
What percentage of people do you believe have made up their minds on how they're going to vote?
I know in every election that Australians, and Queenslanders are no different, take their responsibilities as citizens very seriously. As we get closer and closer and into the campaign proper and closer to the election, people will really have a chance to scrutinise both myself and my policies and my vision for Queensland and those of the alternative. And as that happens, I think you'll see the race really tighten up, but I'm under no illusion. It's going to be a very, very tough one.
Yeah, well, the polls aren't kind to you at the moment. You've got 8 weeks to try and turn around voters. And what are the issues that you're going to attack to try and get that done?
Well, what a campaign will do is allow Queenslanders to really see Mr Newman for the first time. Mr Newman, as an opposition leader, quite unusually, has very much sought to avoid scrutiny. He avoids questions, he very rarely appears in public, and he won't be able to do that. He won't be able to run and hide, and they'll get a chance to see him. What they'll see from me is someone who has a very big vision for Queensland, who's very optimistic about our future, who has big ideas like our proposal for an education trust fund funded out of 50% of the gas royalties that will come our way. That will give our children a competitive edge that no one else in the country has. It's those sorts of optimistic ideas that will give Queensland the opportunity to stay where we are, and that's the #1 state in the country.
So you're not feeling at all glum about what the polls are suggesting at the moment, and that you've got a really, really big mountain to climb?
Look, I know I go into this fight as the underdog, and I know that it'll be the fight of my life. But you know, Queensland is worth fighting for, and I intend it to give everything that I've got. You know, I love this state. I have big plans for it, and I look forward to talking to people about them.
Premier, what role will Bob Katter's party play in deciding the result of the election?
Well, I think that's a very good question. I don't think there has been much analysis to date of what Bob Katter's party might do here in the state election. There is no doubt in my mind that he will put a very, very serious fight up to a number of LNP seats or seats held by retiring independents that the LNP has to win to form a government. So at the very least, he's going to mean that the LNP will be fighting to make sure they hold seats that they currently retain, let alone seek to win seats that they need to form a government. There are some very interesting wild cards at play in this election, and it will make for very interesting political commentary. Well,
there are no news poll evidence to go on for Bob Katter's Australian party, but what's your research telling you about what percentage of the vote it might end up with?
Look, there has been some public polling published here in Queensland that shows in some parts of Queensland Bob Katter's party is polling around 23, I think, or 24%. That's a very, very significant slice of the pie, and it means that in some seats where it'll be concentrated higher than that, he very well, if he gets preferences, then he may well see his candidates overtake the current incumbent, an LNP, Labor or Independent. So I do think that there are, as I said, some real wild cards at play. But what Queensland needs right now is a government that has a solid majority. Only Labor can provide that single solid majority. It will be Campbell Newman that will have to bring together a government out of independents who currently hold seats that he's unlikely to win, and a very disparate and disunited Liberal and National Party, let alone Bob Katter candidates. So It'll be Labor that offers stability and a solid majority as a government for Queensland.
Now, of all the obstacles you have to come and the adversaries you have to overcome in the next 8 weeks, how big is the "it's time" factor for you?
I'll be going to people on the 24th of March and asking for a second term for my government. I'm a Premier that has had a first term that's where we've had to battle some of the biggest issues in Queensland's history. The global financial crisis, where I led Queensland out of the toughest of economic times, to now we are, just a couple of years later, back as one of the strongest economies in the country. Similarly, we went through natural disasters, the worst in Australia's history, and we've come out of those recovered and ready to take our place again in Australia. So what all that means is that I've had a very, very tough first term as a Premier, but I look forward to going to people on the 24th and outlining the vision, the energy, the drive that I have for a further term as Premier of Queensland. There's a lot at stake in this election. It's a very, very important moment in our history and our development. We've got a lot of opportunities sitting on our doorstep, but we won't realise it without strong, proven and effective leadership, and I don't believe that my opponent is up to that task.
Well, talking about leadership, Peter Beattie writes in one of the papers this morning, he says your legacy and political reputation will depend on the result. What do you make of that?
Well, there's no doubt, as I said, there's a lot at stake in this election, not only for the people of Queensland and our state, but for both myself and Campbell Newman and the political parties that we lead. I think that's a pretty self-evident truth in any election campaign. What this election campaign will come down to on the 24th of March is who is best placed to lead Queensland. Anna Bligh, big ideas, very positive vision, or Campbell Newman, who has never been involved in state politics, leads a team that is frankly a rabble and is very, very likely, I think, to be unable to form a government.
Premier Bligh,
someone who is yet, in fact, to win his own seat.
We'll wait and see. It's 8 long weeks and the official campaign doesn't start until February 19. We appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.